match. Will it be Tord Reklev, our Norwegian player, continuing his winning ways, or will Ryan Sabelhaus get his revenge?
So Tord opening with that Drampa. We saw Righteous Edge about 1,000,000 times in round one for Tord to be able to sort of grind his way out to victory. On Ryan's side, he's actually going to be playing the Espeon-based Garbodor list, which can actually be pretty frustrating to deal with. The Float Stone definitely going to help with that.
Yeah, at Internationals, Tord played this exact same deck, the Drampa Garbodor deck, and you can see still doing well, 3-0 at the World Championships. Ryan at the time was playing that Volcanion deck, and this time around he has switched to that Espeon Garbodor deck that we saw him play yesterday, and he seems to be doing quite well with it today, so it'll be a much different matchup than we saw at the International Championships.
All Tord can really do is just pass after an energy and his supporter, and it looks like he's going to get a new hand of 6 to work with. Ryan shuffling in for a new hand of 6 as well. No Psychic Energy for that instant evolution with Energy Evolution on Eevee's ability. And I'm sure both players are hoping to get those first Trubbish down. And as always, trying to play as few item cards as possible.
Yeah, there was a lot of debate among the community about which of these versions of the deck is better in the mirror match. Initially, I think a lot of people argued that the Drampa version was better against the other Garbodor decks. You don't have an alternate attacker that's also weak to Psychic. But then as time went on, people were saying, no, I actually think Espeon might be better. That Psybeam is super annoying, and it just provides so many problems. It kind of forces your opponent to play item cards. And we're going to kind of find the answer here, go through the ins and outs of the different dynamics that make this matchup so interesting. And it's all going to start here with that Energy Evolution ability.
Yeah, and that really is what makes these Eevee evolutions so good. Being able to evolve on the same turn that you're down and straight from the deck as well. It's just very convenient. And it allows you to, especially with these one energy attackers, just start Psybeaming immediately with the Psychic Energy. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes together, especially because Tord runs such a heavy Floatstone count to get around the confusion. That said, simply being confused in itself is an issue. Just because you can retreat doesn't mean that Tord necessarily wants to retreat.
Yeah, so Ryan getting pretty much the start he wants. Started with Eevee, gets the Psychic Energy as well as Choice Band to Psybeam for a quick 60 damage and leave his opponent's active Pokemon confused. He would love to get probably a Trubbish or 2 onto the bench as well, but he knows there's no threat of his Espeon GX being knocked out. This is not like a Mega Rayquaza deck that can just burst out of nowhere and do 240 damage. This is a slower, more methodical deck that takes multiple turns to power up big threats.
And so right off the bat, we see the Psybeam dealing 60 damage because of the Choice Band.
Oh boy. Trubbish getting powered up with the Choice Band. We could see Tord go for the Acid Spray.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. That's one of the downsides to Espeon GX. It is weak to Psychic, so we'll see how this ends up going.
Yeah, if Tord wanted to go that route, attach the Psychic Energy, he could Acid Spray for 10 plus 30 for the Choice Band, times 2 for weakness. So 1 energy, 80 damage, and potentially discard the energy from Espeon GX, creating a very awkward situation for his opponent.
You know how you can't do that? Is if you don't attach to it.
Yeah, I could see how that would be problematic.
Tord's got Float Stones, he's got other Pokemon, but he doesn't have another energy, which is something you really want to deal with all this pressure right away.
Ooh, and I wonder, do you go for a Big Wheel GX here if your hand is not great?
Confusion flips are some of the most exciting things in this game.
Now, if you flip Tails, it would not count as using your GX attack because the attack fails before you even get a chance to use it. But if you get Heads, the GX attack would go through. He would draw a fresh hand of 10 cards. And the damage doesn't especially matter if he were to flip Tails. And here we go. Big flip for Confusion.
Drampa is confused, and it's Heads. The Big Wheel succeeds.
All right, 10 cards for our Norwegian player. Right off the bat, a bit of fortune going his way. Sometimes you just got to take the risk in the face of an Espeon GX and the risk of confusion. It's still a 50-50 shot that your attack goes through, and there wasn't really a lot of downside, I don't think. Either way, a double Colorless Energy would have been a Psychic knockout with the Choice Band involved, so I don't think there was any major risk there, but maybe later in the game we could see a higher stakes confusion flip.
So coming back over to Ryan, I do see an N in his hand, so maybe eyeing up the possibility of shuffling the big wheel back in. He also has Bridget to set up himself, opting to go for the Bridget here.
Yeah, he wants to continue to set up without playing item cards, and this is going to be the best way to do it. Bridget, a supporter card that can get 3 basic Pokemon onto your bench. So we'll probably see 2 Trubbish, since 2 of them are prized, and then probably another Eevee. Or he's actually even eyeing up Sudowoodo here. Interesting.
So here we see Roadblock, Sudowoodo, and 2 Trubbish hitting the bench. Maybe just thinking, I know my opponent uses a lot of those Tapu Lele to close out games. Maybe if I force him to have a slightly smaller bench, he'll get clogged and not have exactly what he wants later in the game.
Yeah, that's certainly something that could come up. We know Tord plays 4 Tapu Lele GX in his deck, and he relies on them quite a bit. So just taking away one of those bench spots could end up being big later.
So Ryan attaches to the bench Trubbish, and it looks like we'll probably get another Psybeam.
Psybeam?
There it is.
Yeah, and a few months ago, this would be great. There were really no healing cards being played in these Garbodor decks. So once you put that 60 damage there, you would feel pretty safe that you would have an easy knockout later. Now we have Acerola in the mix, so it could undo a lot of that damage that has been done. And that's something to keep an eye out for as the game progresses.
I would not be shocked if we see it. Tord going to grab the Bridget off of this Tapu Lele, so maybe not going for... Oh, but look, he's eyeing it up, thinking about it.
Yeah, well, he already grabbed the Bridget. He slammed it down.
Okay.
So he has made his choice. The face-down card right there, he revealed it, and then just wanted to keep searching to make sure he knows what's in his prize cards.
The option definitely will be available to him if he decides to retreat this Drampa. Later, could clear damage off. In general, it's a very strong card. It's just very situational as well.
So we'll see which basic Pokemon he wants to take off of the Bridget. He only has 1 open bench spot after that, and maybe he just wants another Drampa GX, and it was his only way to get it. I mean, the other potential thing is he wants to Sycamore away his hand and wants to get a useless Bridget into his discard pile.
So here we see opting to play the Bridget, and I guess he can only Bridget to get 1 more benched Pokemon down.
Now he's got Garbotoxin out, so he's taken away the roadblock.
Okay, it does have the tool attached as well.
Yeah, so he can bridge it now for 2 benched Pokemon.
Yeah, 1 extra, maybe relevant. Although off of a tool scrapper, you'll immediately have to discard 1.
Yeah, which I think he'd be fine with. He would just discard a Tapu Lele GX.
So there we see, full 5 down. Now that Tord has his Garbotoxin activated. And that's one option I guess you'd lose as well when you're running the Espeon-based version as well.
Yeah, so are we going to see the Acid Spray? Here it is. Another big coin flip early on in this game for Tord Reklev. He hit heads on the first one for the Big Wheel GX. Will he be able to discard the energy with Acid Spray? Here we go.
And it's another heads for Tord. A discarded energy on Ryan's side.
Yeah, and 80 damage. That's a big amount for just 1 energy on that little Trubbish. You see the power of Choice Band right there. Turns a 10 damage attack into a 40 damage attack, and then weakness adds ×2. Yeah. So 10 damage attack got boosted to 80 damage with all these modifiers.
Choice Band is one of the strongest tools in the game right now. Being able to deal 30 extra damage to GX and EX Pokemon is huge. It's just such a big tool. It's used in almost every deck, I feel like. But you could see, even in unconventional ways, sometimes it's still incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and you can see Tord, I think, respects his opponent quite a bit. I remember his interview after the International Championships. He was praising Ryan, saying he's an insanely good player. Maybe not afraid to take some risks like this. Going for the Confusion flip, going for the Acid Spray flip, knowing that, hey, I'm not going to outplay this person. I need to take some risks when it makes sense. And so far, they are paying off.
So here we see an end coming off. Both players still getting the 6 cards. No knockouts taken, but a lot of damage has been thrown each way. And I don't know if I see a new Psychic Energy over on Ryan's side.
Does not look like it, and that means no attack from this Espeon GX on this turn. And that's pretty annoying for Ryan. I mean, he can't really attack this Trubbish. He'll get hit for another 80 damage. Potentially that Garbodor evolves into, or the Trubbish evolves into Garbodor, and we see like double colorless energy, Acid Spray. The first item card going into Ryan's discard pile now would make a Trash Lanch do 100 damage after the Choice Band and weakness. So Lots of weird stuff going on.
So here we see, I think he opted to just drop the Tapu Lele down and not search for a supporter.
Yeah,
not
there's
one attack.
Garbotoxin.
Yeah. Oh, of course. But just dropping a double colorless energy on, feeling like he needs to have some kind of counter-attacker, somewhere to put this double colorless energy.
Yeah, you don't want to miss the energy attachment. You certainly want to put it somewhere.
One item.
So back over on Tord's end. We're going to go ahead and do an item count on each side.
One on each
one.
side.
Yeah.
So both of these players, I'm sure, have played this kind of matchup many times. I know Tord has. Ryan probably has as well. The idea is to play as few item cards as possible, and that field blower will now add one to each player's discard pile, one for Tord, and the discarded tool for Ryan. And here's a big Professor Sycamore, so things are starting to heat up a little bit. I think Tord is digging for that double colorless energy as well as the Garbodor, so he can acid spray for the knockout, and there
he hit
it is. Well, at this point, he could even just Trash-a-Lanche with the second item in the discard.
Yeah, I think that's what he was hoping to do. Fine with getting one of his tools into the discard pile. And that double colorless energy then can go onto the Drampa, maybe survive another turn. And then he has multiple attackers to back up. I didn't even realize he has a double colorless energy on the Drampa that isn't damaged as well.
So there we do see the Trash-a-Lanche, and the first two prize cards are taken for Tord Reklev. And this is why a lot of players felt like Espeon GX was a liability in the mirror match. That weakness to Psychic can come up very big against even small amounts of item cards in the discard pile, or even crazy acid spray with Choice Band knockouts. It would do an exact 200 damage after weakness. But looks like Ryan is going to try to find a way out after this. He is forced to play more item cards here, and can he put up a fight against Tord's Trash-a-Lanche?
Yeah, I think we may enter that stage of the game where it's a Trash-a-Lanche battle between Garbodors. Ryan getting 6 cards, Tord only getting 4. He has another Trubbish down that he could evolve. I think he just wants more of that.
Yeah, he'll definitely get a knockout this turn. 3 item cards in Tord's discard pile, so a Trash-a-Lanche for 60 times 2 gets to 120. The perfect math for a knockout is just going to be, how does Ryan then respond to, say, a Drampa GX? He doesn't have a big attacker lined up. There's not enough item cards in Tord's discard pile to knock it out in one attack. So right now it looks like Tord is the one in firm control. He has the prize lead. He kind of has the board position. We'll see if Ryan can kind of wiggle his way out of this spot.
Yeah, I think if that clean Drampa GX is able to come up, it's going to be very difficult to deal with. Another double colorless energy going on a target that maybe you don't want to as much, just throwing it onto the Garbodor on the bench. I can only assume we'll see a Trash-a-Lanche here for Ryan's first prize.
Indeed, the trash battle has begun. One knockout for Ryan. He does get one of his prize Trubbish out of his prize cards, so he'll be able to play another one down, and this might just come down to who can piece together enough attacking Pokemon in a row to take their prize cards. We're going to start seeing big attacks back and forth.
Now, towards the end, he was end away, but it looks like he still has energy to work with. Going to drop a Rainbow down on his Drampa GX on the bench. That's likely going to be his attacker this turn, hitting for a big Berserk.
Yeah, it sure looks like it. That's just a big attacker that Ryan can't really deal with. He doesn't have an Espeon GX ready to go. One of the big interactions you can have is, Drampa GX with 3 energy is a big target for Espeon GX's Psychic attack with a Choice Band. Can do 180 damage, but with no Espeon in sight, only Garbodor as the attacking option. There is Tapu Lele GX, but it won't have nearly enough energy to get a knockout. Tord just might take command with this big basic GX.
Yeah, we haven't really seen another Eevee come down over on Ryan's side. I wonder if very early in, if maybe the Sudowoodo wasn't the greatest choice off the Bridget. It ended up getting shut down relatively early from a Garbotoxin.
Yeah, it's been pretty useless so far. Ryan is going to target that Drampa GX with the damage on it, though. And this could be a big swing in this game. This is the only Pokemon on Tord's bench that had damage counters on it to activate the bonus damage from Berserk. So if he's unable to find a Rainbow Energy, he wouldn't be able to pull off the Choice Band Berserk knockout on this Tapu Lele GX, and this is kind of what Ryan needs. He needs to get an attack where he gets a knockout and have a favorable exchange where Tord is not able to respond with a knockout of his own.
Well, Tord does have the Rainbow Energy. I believe he had 2 last turn, so that'll give him a knockout here, and that's going to be a 2-prize one, putting him at 1 left.
Oof.
That does put you in a really rough spot. I don't know if Ryan has any way to one-shot a Drampa GX in the active position.
No, not right now. Tord is eyeing up that teammates in his discard pile, and that's got to be bad news. If you're sitting across from him in Ryan's seat, then you know he has exactly what he needs here. He'll be able to search for whatever 2 cards he wants and put them into his hand. That choice band will be huge to get a knockout, and then maybe just an energy card or an evolution or something to further his board position here.
And it is funny, the Rainbow Energy card has been around for well over a decade in the Pokemon trading card game. Has always had that effect. It applies one of every energy type, but when you attach it to your Pokemon, you have to put a damage counter on them. Normally you'd think that's a bad thing, but in certain decks like this one, it actually powers up your combos, allowing you to deal the extra damage with Berserk.
Yeah, Rainbow Energy is a pretty cool card. It provides every type of energy, but only 1 unit of energy at a time. So it's like 1 of any color you want. We have double colorless energy, and then we have rainbow, which is kind of the opposite. It's every color.
Every color, just not multiple of the color.
Yeah.
And of course, we have both of those on the Drampa right now. We're going to see 1 attached to one of Tord's Pokemon, just so that he has, by the time Drampa GX comes into the active spot, what qualifies as a benched Pokemon with damage counters on it. So there we see. There's a bench Pokemon. It's actually the Garbodor, and it's got a damage counter on it.
Yeah, this is almost checkmate for Tord. He is going to go down to 1 prize card here. Ryan's only attackers left are those Garbodor, and Tord can simply, if his active were to get knocked out, he can simply trash a Lanch for the win. If Ryan played Guzma and brought out the benched Garbodor, he would just lose to Drampa GX's Berserk. His only way to really do anything is play a Psychic Energy, end his opponent down to 1 card, and then flip heads on Acid Spray to discard the double colorless energy. And then if Tord misses his energy in a bunch of turns in a row, Ryan could potentially make a comeback here, but it does not look good, and it all starts with a coin flip.
Well, here we go. Starting with the N, it's going to shuffle both players' hands back in. Tord's only going to get 1. So it could potentially leave him with not much. He does have a lot of strong attackers to work with, though. So it's going to be a pretty tough situation. But Ryan is a player who knows how to get out of tough situations as well.
Yeah, he needs a Psychic Energy here, though. If he doesn't get it, he's pretty much done for.
I think that's checkmate.
Yep, and that's it. Ryan does not draw the Psychic Energy, doesn't even get to go for the Acid Spray. And Tord Reklev so far getting the better of Ryan Sabelhaus once again, winning game number 1.
Yeah, looking to pull ahead, go for the 2-0 in games at the 2 biggest stages of the year against one of the best players in the world. And if you're Tord, you got to be feeling pretty good. Your deck ran like a well-oiled machine once again, because that's exactly what it's meant to do.
Yeah, this season has been great to put international players on display. Tord has been around for a long time. He's had a lot of great results. He was a Norwegian national champion multiple times, but didn't get the same coverage as a lot of these other players like Ryan, who are from North America. And now that we have these international championships, we get to see Tord more often, and we get to see how great he is. And now the world gets to learn his name. So it's been awesome to see this more international feeling this season, and now spilling into the World Championships as well. It's been cool to see, to follow Tord's story. He's been on an absolute monster run over the past month or so, winning the international championships, having a great performance at a regional championship, and now has not lost a game yet at the 2017 World Championships.
Yeah, it's just been a downright dominant run for him. I think, has a Masters TCG player ever won the biggest tournament in the world and the World Championships in the same year?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that could be a first storyline that we could be looking at. Definitely poised to take this series, but that said, we've still got 1, maybe 2 more games to go. And here we go into game 2.
Yeah, the closest we ever got was in 2008 when Gino Lombardi won the U.S. National Championships and then followed it up with a top 4 at the World Championships. He was close to pulling both off, but nobody else has really gotten that close.
Yeah, it's been a long while since we've seen this kind of dominant play, and it's a little different because we don't just have we had the U.S. National Championships, which was the big tournament. We've had internationals over the course of the whole year as well, so players have a lot of different metrics to measure their success now, and Tord has done well at multiple internationals too.
Indeed. So here we have game number 2. Will Ryan be able to come back and win this series, or at least tie it up in game number 2, or will Tord close it out and advance to 4-0? He just seems to be a master at this deck in general, but in particular, I haven't really seen him lose a mirror match. He has defeated pretty much every other Garbodor player I've ever seen, including even round 1, taking out Takeshi Yoneda and running a weird Garbodor with Golisopod GX. It doesn't matter what the partner is, Tord is the master of the Trashalanche.
So this time we see Ryan opting to grab an Eevee along with his 2 Trubbish. He doesn't have 2 Trubbish in the prizes, so we see multiple copies. Has a lot of Pokemon in play. And has he passed it over yet? It looks like he has.
Yeah, he played Bridget, didn't play any energy, which is a really big deal, and then had to pass the turn. Looks like Tord will probably be able to do the same. Grab Tapu Lele GX, Wonder Tag for that ever-important Bridget supporter, get 3 basic Pokemon down, and that'll be his first turn, pretty much completely setting up.
And this is sort of how the mirror develops. One big thing that Ryan doesn't have is a Drampa of his own if he wants to start hitting heavy. Big thing to see is if Tord has an energy attachment. I thought I saw one in hand. That's one way to get in the lead, is just being the first player to start attaching energies.
Yep, so we do see the Bridget from Tord, getting those 3 basics on the bench. This is exactly what you want to do on the first turn with this deck. It's funny to see just how much the game has changed over the past 3 months or so. For most of this season, we saw the main decks be turbo strategies where you're trying to do as much as you can on the first turn of the game, playing a bunch of item cards, Trainer's Mail, Max Elixir, all these different things. And now the game has slowed down to the point where you can use your first turn just playing Bridget to search for basic Pokemon and then play an energy. That's your ideal start.
Yeah, Bridget has been around for a while, but really saw her fullest potential when combined with Tapu Lele, giving you that perfect turn 1. You can afford to do these slower setups now. And who says your setup has to be slow when you can big wheel, shuffle your hand, and draw 10 cards on your first turn?
Yep, there we go. And we see Espeon GX on the bench for Ryan. We'll see if he has an N to perhaps disrupt Tord here.
It looks like, once again, he does not.
Also, opting not to even play Sudowoodo down this game. The first one, he actually went out of his way to play Bridget to get it into play, but this time he's saying, oh, I guess that really didn't do anything. And I would kind of agree. It would basically be trading Sudowoodo on his bench for a Tapu Lele on Tord's bench, because I think that's what would get discarded. And I would rather just have an open bench spot to play another Tapu Lele GX later in the game.
It looks like we may end up seeing a flipped scenario for Ryan where his Acid Spray ends up coming into effect. And he's going to have to get a big coin flip.
Sure looks like it. He is playing another Ultra Ball, though. And that'll put the second item card into his discard pile. What is he going to go for? I mean, getting a Garbodor here doesn't do a lot. You can Trashalanche for 40 damage. That's not incredible, but it does put on some pressure, I suppose.
It does look like the route that he's going right now.
Yeah, he'll be able to get a little bit of damage.
Oh, he could... has he not attached this turn? I can't remember.
Oh, he attached, yeah.
Okay, yeah. He did not attach his very first turn.
Oh, actually, now there's 3 item cards in the discard. So this is not lining up well for him. Now he's opened himself up to a Trashalanche from Tord's side, and his Garbodor could go down. Looks like Ryan is being a bit more aggressive this game, understanding that he might not have a lot of time to win this match if he doesn't play quickly, and that might be changing the way he approaches this match.
So coming back over to Tord, he obviously has a lot to work with. He has a double colorless energy in hand if he wants to start attacking with the Drampa. The big thing is, I'm sure he would want something like a Float Stone combined with a Garbodor of his own just so he can Trashalanche, get the knockout. But here we see double colorless energy committed to the active.
Yeah, he might just be fine with a Berserk here for 80, setting up a 2-hit knockout. And then it could also set up next turn a Rainbow Energy to the bench and Berserk. But he could actually just Guzma as well and go after a Trubbish, take a prize that way.
Yeah, one way to sort of just steal a knockout. And those are going to be important because if you knock out the Trubbish before it becomes Garbodor, it just makes your job a lot easier.
Yep, so it looks like Tord is going to take the first prize of this game and really be the aggressor once again, at least in terms of prize cards. And we'll see that Berserk for just 80 damage, but that's enough to take down Trubbish. And Tord is going to get that Versus Seeker out of his prize cards, setting him up for a future turn. So far, Tord, again, off to a great start, and we'll see if Ryan can respond.
And we've sort of talked about the clash between these two different variants of decks. The Drampa has looked very dominant. It's been sort of the core of Tord's strategy in both games so far, while the Espeon has not really gotten the chance to shine yet.
Yeah, and I wonder if Ryan will go for just a Psybeam with his Espeon GX here. Last turn, his Garbodor was safe. Tord could only attach one energy card, and if he wanted to power up Berserk, it had to be the active, which means he couldn't put a Rainbow Energy onto his benched Pokemon to get the bonus damage from Berserk. This turn, Garbodor would not be safe. All Tord has to do is attach Rainbow Energy to one of his benched Pokemon, put a damage counter on it, and he would Berserk for the knockout. So Ryan might change his plans this turn and go for the Psybeam and force a Confusion Flip.
So Ryan was briefly eyeing up an N off of the Wonder Tag, instead hoping to grab the Guzma. So maybe instead of attacking the Drampa, he's going to try and just grab a cheap prize of his own on a Trubbish.
Yeah, might be copying Tord's play a little bit. And if he can get a Psychic Energy onto Espeon GX as well, he could set up for a Psychic attack, and that would knock out Drampa GX.
Yeah, I don't think we saw a single Psychic last game. There was that very crucial Acid Spray that ended up dissipating his energy and preventing the option altogether.
Yeah, and there's only 3 item cards in Ryan's discard pile, so that Espeon is not in any danger of a Trash Avalanche just yet. But after a Field Blower, I think it would be. With Field Blower plus Choice Band on a Trash Avalanche, that would knock out Espeon GX.
Yeah, that would be the big danger. We haven't actually seen a Garbodor come out on Tord's side, but it's got a pretty big hand, and sure, he has the option to grab more cards. Yeah, just throwing up Trubbish in the active spot.
So yeah, this is looking like a situation where both players are going to trade back and forth, but Tord was kind of the first one to initiate this exchange. And it might just come down to he was the first one to take the first prize. You know, if they trade back and forth every turn, I mean, Tord's going to get there first. So it might just come down to which player runs out of gas.
So Tord looking to grab the teammates has been a big foundation to his strategy. Because he runs so many Tapu Lele, that card just gets even more valuable. Grabbing 2 Garbodor from it. Just saying, I don't want any more Trubbish knockouts. This is going to be my main attacker as these Psychic Pokemon continue to come forward on Ryan's side. So let's go ahead and evolve up right now and get to business.
Yep, Teammates has been a huge card for Tord. Just so powerful being able to search for any 2 cards and put them into your hand. It helps you string along those attackers where every turn you need to get the stage 1, the energy. And that's it. You need 2 cards every turn. So, hey, your Pokemon gets knocked out. You play another Teammates. You grab the Garbodor, the energy. You evolve your Trubbish. You attack again. It just helps you keep that flow going. Whereas if you miss a beat anywhere in between these attacks, you can run out of resources and just lose.
And it looks like there's been a pause in play right now. Hopefully we can get more information for you guys to figure out what happened. Maybe it was an order of operations or something that's already been played. Nothing that caught my eye immediately, but maybe we missed something.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get that resolved soon. Right now, it looks like almost anybody's game. I would say advantage Tord, just because he has the fully powered Drampa GX. He's going to have the prize lead. This Teammates will give him 2 Garbodor, but as we've seen countless times, any game can be decided by that one supporter card N at the end of a game where just disrupts your opponent's hand size. They might not draw the crucial energy card or that Guzma or Garbodor they need to win. And this match is far from over. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some pretty crucial Guzmas coming up in these games. Pulling up something like the Drampa, knocking it out with Psychic would be big. Otherwise, the Drampa being able to pull up something like a Lele and knocking it out. Big 2-prize swings to close the game out will be a big one. And I think we may start to see that point where the floodgates start to open with the amount of item cards played on each side for big trash avalanches.
Yeah, both players just at 3 in the discard pile right now. And, a field blower could always set that off. Field blower actually puts items in the discard for both sides.
Usually you want to get like the 1-for-2 trade, but sometimes, like you were mentioning, the 1 is really big. It's especially big over on Tord's side because it allows him to, with a band, knock out an Espeon GX with a Trash Avalanche. But it's another one of those enabling cards where you can sort of just open it up. Oh, okay, everybody's playing all their items now.
Let's see, both players just kind of taking a look through each other's discard pile, trying to figure out what resources have they used. It's always important to keep count of how many of each card has been used. You can only play a maximum of 4 cards in your deck, 4 of every kind of card. So you can only play like 4 Professor Sycamore, 4 N, 4 Versus Seeker. Sometimes players will check, how many double colorless energy have you used? How many Versus Seekers are in the discard pile? That way they know which options they can eliminate and which ones they can expect to see. And then it informs your options in how you want to approach the following turns.
Yeah, looks like we have a judge confusion. We're looking into figuring out what's happening right now. It's maybe just a discussion, it looks like, on pace of play. I know Ryan's no stranger to wanting to have his games played out as quickly as possible and have the opportunity to go for as much as he can. So we'll see how that ends up being resolved.
Yeah, as we've said in the past, Tord is a very methodical player. He likes to think through every option, but sometimes it can be a little too slow. It's good to be able to think out your options, but you have to be fair to your opponent. There's only 50 minutes in a round. So you need to be respectful of the time. And if you take too long every turn, your opponent doesn't really get a chance to play. And so I think there's some discussion among the judges on whether Tord has kind of crossed that line and whether they should issue a penalty for playing too slowly.
Sure. And this is something that can sometimes happen where we don't necessarily hear the conversation, but judges can issue warnings to players saying, like, please, we need to pick up the pace of play. I know, like, you've had to deal with that in the past as well. I think we all have at some point. You always want to sit and think through as many options as possible. I'm not sure if we've gotten a resolution here or not.
It looks like there was a penalty for slow play issued to Tord, and Ryan was Tord was issued a prize penalty. So Ryan actually took a prize card. And that's going to be a big swing in this game, I think. He's now at 4 prize cards compared to Tord's 5.
I'm sure we'll see pick up and pace for Tord. I know that's frustrating when you're trying to play the best game possible. And unfortunately, like we mentioned, time is a factor in this game just as much as playing the actual cards and doing what it says on them.
Yeah, I mean, at home you can take as long as you want, but in a tournament there are rules and restrictions. Unfortunately, we don't have these venues forever. There has to be time limits. Otherwise, these matches could go on for a very long time.
I know you've had experience in untimed finals for unofficial tournaments. They run a very long time.
Indeed. But we do see a big Guzma from Ryan. He's going to target down that Drampa GX, knock it out with this Psychic from his Espeon GX. Now down to 2 prize cards. And will Tord be able to respond with a knockout here? A Choice Band would be a knockout with Trash Avalanche. A Field Blower could also get him there. And we do see Versus Seeker probably going for teammates. So he's going to get the knockout. It's just a question of whether or not Ryan will be able to respond.
Yeah, and here comes the band. That was the big thing that we noted. There are enough item cards in the discard pile for an easy knockout off of Trash Avalanche. And I'm wondering, does Ryan have any way to get a 2-prize knockout following? I don't actually see one.
Yeah, ultimately, I don't know if that prize penalty will make a massive difference. Still looks like Tord is pretty far ahead just on how this game's going to play out. It is not over by any means, but it looks like he has more Trash Avalanche Garbodor ready to go. There aren't enough item cards in Tord's discard pile to make Trash Avalanche, a one-hit knockout on a Tapu Lele GX on the bench. So I don't really see Ryan winning on the following turn. There's just no way. Although now with that Floatstone, we could open up a Field Blower, Choice Band, and Guzma knockout. So Tord playing into that a little bit, but Ryan would need a lot of cards to pull that off.
Yeah, Sycamore can get you a lot of cards, but it can't get you a lot of cards and be a Guzma at the same time.
Yeah.
So both players just 2 prizes away. Tord looking to be the favorite so far, even with that penalty, but there could still be a window of opportunity for Ryan depending on what he has.
Indeed, and now Ryan's going to be in a similar position. He wants to be able to knock out this Garbodor, but I think he needs to get a second Trubbish on the board. He needs to knock out the active, and he needs to do it without putting too many items in his discard pile. Because if he does, Tord can then play his own Guzma and then knock out Tapu Lele GX for the win. So can Ryan piece together this perfect game plan while avoiding playing too many item cards? It's going to be close.
And it looks like we have a Wonder Tag over on Ryan's side, also eyeing up teammates of his own. So here we go, picking any 2 cards that he wants. Looks like he just grabbed the energy, and I missed the other one.
I think it's Garbodor, and he'll need to Ultra Ball for the second Trubbish just to have one ready to go on the following turn. It looks like that's what he's going to go for.
You never want to give up a Guzma, but with so many Versus Seekers, sometimes you have to at least get one end into the discard pile.
Yeah, and that's where the prize penalty will come into play. He'll be able to knock out the active, and then Tord's going to respond with another Trash Avalanche of his own, and then if Ryan just gets another Garbodor with another energy, he'll be able to Trash Avalanche for the win and tie up the series.
So here we see Trash Avalanche up in the active. There are enough item cards in the discard pile where he does not need a Choice Band of any kind to get the knockout. This is Psychic on Psychic, so usually just saying Trash Avalanche in any way gets you a knockout. So there's a prize for Ryan, and we're back over to Tord. I don't know if Tord has any way to take 2 prizes on this turn. Something like an N could certainly slow things down.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing he's looking for is maybe an N followed by closing out with Drampa. But with both players having so few prize cards remaining, this is going to be very tough.
Yeah, I think this is coming down to an N to 1 for Ryan. Tord's going to be able to get the knockout with Trash Avalanche, play N, put Ryan down to 1 card, and it'll be really down to that. Can Ryan find 1 more Garbodor and a Psychic Energy to Trash Avalanche for the game off of 1 card plus 1 draw for his turn? There are many ways to do it. I mean, he could just straight away draw Psychic Energy and Garbodor, but any Versus Seeker will get him there for the teammates. Professor Sycamore could easily get him there. But beyond that, that's really it. All of his Tapu Lele GX are on the bench, and nothing else really gets him there.
So there we see just the 1 card, and he'll get 1 more top deck as well. It's going to come down to this. Can Tord still pull out of this game despite the penalty?
Here we
Here's
go,
the
Trash
knockout.
Avalanche. What is Ryan's 1 card? Does he have a Versus Seeker or something like that? There it is!
He does. Oh, wow. Ends up being crucial. Versus Seeker for teammates. There's the Psychic Energy. Where's the Garbodor? Rescue Stretcher.
And there
That's
it
game
is.
2.
Rescue Stretcher for the Garbodor, Trash Avalanche for the game, and maybe that prize penalty costing Tord game number 2. It's hard to tell, in that situation. It would have been an end to 2 instead of an end to 1, and that could have changed how the game played out, but certainly does seem like that impacted the outcome of the game. But
Yeah,
I'm just excited we get to see a game 3.
Yeah, I'm always down. This is has been a controversial pairing, and it seems like it will continue to be that way. It's always tough, but you just you want the games to be played out, but you also want them to be played out fairly. It's always up to the judges to make these decisions. We can't always hear what conversations they're having over the course of the game, but either way, you can see this is a very stressful matchup.
Oh yeah.
Just the way that the cards interact. Can the Espeon survive long enough to actually do a Psychic? That's big damage on the Drampa, which I feel like almost consistently getting energy every single turn is a big deal.
Yep.
You miss one, and then all of a sudden you're not berserking the next turn, or trying to fish for that Psychic and Trash Avalanche.
And I think yesterday Frank Diaz recognized that adding that Plumeria to his deck, just slowing down his opponent by 1 turn, can make all of the difference. Do want to point out that there was a time extension granted by the judges over that ruling dispute, so The timer has been updated to reflect that. We have about 13 minutes to go for this final game. It's plenty of time for a game to finish, but anything can happen, and we could end up in a tie if there's no conclusion to the game, but I'm going to hope we get all the way through.
Here we go to the finals. As always, let us know how you're feeling about this over at #PlayPokemon. I also saw an interesting feature over on Pokemon.com/live where there was a live voter where players could talk about the players they thought were going to win. What did you see in the prizes there?
So big prizes for Tord, 2 Trubbish and the 1 Bridget, both in his prize cards. Those are both huge. Bridget is your preferred turn 1 supporter to be able to get those basic Pokemon on the bench. And of course, Trubbish you need for the Trashalanche Garbodor.
So here we see a brand new hand of 7. Oh, is that a Sudowoodo starter?
Oh, yeah.
Trubbish is probably a little bit better.
Let's see prizes for Ryan, see if there's anything relevant for him. Nothing too big. Yeah, not really.
Nothing crazy.
Rescue stretcher, but all right. Game 3 getting kicked off, though.
A Drampa opening, and I think right away Tord's going to look, okay, grab Bridget, let's start. And then we always see this with players. Okay, one more time. Grab Bridget, let's start. Okay, my cards must be stuck together. And then eventually you realize, okay, no Bridget.
Yep, and I think Ryan's played enough where he probably understands what's going on, too. He knows Tord would probably slam down the Bridget right away. And once he sees the N instead, he's going to know, it's in your prize cards, huh?
Yeah, maybe gives him a better chance to set up. Maybe has access to the Bridget of his own as long as he has a Tapu Lele. So here we see an N coming out. Both players going for the Shuffle 6.
Yep, there we see it, an N. So both players shuffling their hands into their decks and then drawing a card for each prize card they have. N has been a part of the Pokemon TCG for the past 5+ years, I think. It has just been one of the strongest cards we've seen time and time again, and it can decide a game early on. It gives both players 6 cards, so it's a good way to draw extra cards. Later in the game can be used for disruption to stop your opponent from finishing off the game by really messing with their resources, getting rid of cards in their hand, but just a card we see in nearly every deck.
So here we see the Ultra Ball over in Tord's hand. Can start getting a Trubbish down. Maybe we'll, at this point, realize the ones that are prized.
Maybe, but at this point, you got to be concerned with getting a win instead of a tie. You got to play quickly. You got to understand that, oh boy, I need to just make decisions, even if they're not the optimal ones, even if I don't know exactly what my prizes are. Just making plays is better than knowing all the information.
Yeah, win here, going 4-0-0, 4 wins, no losses, no draws, is such a huge advantage that I feel like both these players have got to want to push for that instead of getting the draw and having to play out a little more cautiously over the rest of the tournament. So we see really quickly, Ultra Ball for the Tapu Lele, Wonder Tag for the Bridget, the ideal start for Ryan that Tord was unable to do because of prizes.
Yeah, Tord's like, oh, you get to Bridget, okay. That's fair.
I see how it is. And I think we're going to see a pretty similar setup to last time. An Eevee and 2 Trubbish. I wonder if he's even considering mixing it up, going 2 Eevee. Looks like he's just going to do this. 2 Trubbish, 1 Eevee down.
Yeah, the big question, does he have an energy to attach? If he doesn't, it's a lackluster turn. I mean, you get the 3 basics out, that's great, but you really want an energy here. Probably get Espeon GX, but looks like no energy attachment, and that's going to slow down his offense.
Yeah, especially when you're going to allow your opponent to start going big with Drampa coming up. You want to be able to hit for that Psychic for big damage. So it looks like we're going to see Tapu Lele thrown up into the active position and just a pass. So balls in Tord's court. He has double colorless energy, so he could hit for decent damage. No way to self-damage his bench yet. But here comes Sycamore for 7 more cards.
Yeah, Ryan realizing he doesn't want to give up a prize to Tord's Drampa GX and that it's impossible for Tord to knock out Tapu Lele GX. And even though it can be setting up a 2-hit knockout later, he values having the Trubbish in play more than having the Tapu Lele GX. So being able to deny a prize there is a pretty big deal. And he can kind of fight back a little bit if he wants to with double colorless energy and choice band and energy drive. It's not a knockout, but it does set up for a 2-hit knockout.
So we see N over on Ryan's end. Yeah, there was just an unboosted Berserk over on Drampa, but I don't know if Ryan really has any way to immediately deal with the Drampa. I'm sure he would love some kind of way to start getting his Espeon ready to go.
Yeah, I think Ryan just wants a Psychic Energy this turn. He can evolve his Eevee into Espeon GX, and then next turn perhaps get Double Colorless Energy plus Choice Band to knock out this Drampa GX. I feel like that's probably his best play.
So let's see, right off the bat, I don't know if I see a Psychic Energy. Double Colorless just going to the active Tapu Lele. It's going to fall next turn, but not before dealing some decent damage. But I am sure that that's not the route that Ryan would normally like to take.
Now, Tord does not get an automatic knockout here. He still needs to find either a Choice Band or a Rainbow Energy. So there is a chance he could miss the knockout here. Berserk doing only 80 damage right now, and after benching that Drampa GX attaching the Double Colorless, he needs to find a Choice Band to get the knockout.
He has a Versa Seeker and Sycamore, so he's going to be able to dig for it, but it's going to be a crucial card here. Otherwise, he'll be 10 damage short.
Yeah, Tord realizing he needs to play quickly. Does he find Choice Band?
He did.
Right, he's got several.
Choice Band over in the active, yeah, flying as quickly as possible, starting to realize, I think I can run with this actually and grab a win. So boom, there we go. Berserk, 2 prize cards. I've never seen someone pull prize cards as fast as that.
And now it's up to Ryan to respond. Does he have a way to knock out this Drampa? He could get another Tapu Lele GX with the Double Colorless Energy Drive once again for the knockout. A Garbodor with a Choice Band would be enough to Trash-a-Lanche for the knockout. If he has a Psychic Energy, he could go for that play. But I think he really needs to get the knockout. That's the main thing.
So here we see eyeing up Ultra Ball in his hand. I think he has Lele and maybe DC in hand. It's hard to tell. Oh, no, he's got the Espeon. So opting to discard that. He could Ultra Ball for the Lele. Probably not a terrible pick if he's just looking to grab a knockout right now. And then maybe Lele survives for another turn.
Yeah, it definitely will. You'll be knocking out this Drampa GX. There's no damage counters on Tord's bench Pokemon, so a Berserk isn't a threat. And looks like that's what Ryan's going to go for. He's going to try to keep up the pace, try to make it so he can perhaps win this game before time is up as well. Both players understanding the context here. Sure, they could play a full game, but they only have 5.5 minutes to go. So if they want to get a win out of this instead of a tie, they got to pick up the pace.
So we're seeing N coming off on Ryan's side. More cards for him, less cards for Tord. He has a knockout lined up. And the question is, I would imagine just how quickly he can power up something in this turn that Tapu Lele will survive.
So 6 cards for Ryan, 4 for Tord. That could potentially slow him down. And we'll see a retreat and energy drive for the knockout. Ryan tying up the game here. And one thing to keep an eye on, Tord has 4 item cards in the discard pile now. He's had to use a few more of them, being a bit more aggressive with this Professor Sycamore. And we'll see what he's going for here. Has his own Tapu Lele GX Wonder Tag, and man, he is playing at light speed.
Yeah, I think he certainly feels like he wants to let people know, well, not only that he can play at this pace, but also just that he wants to try and win this third game.
Indeed. And with the Field Blower, and he's going to play the N. So he's going to go for the N plus Righteous Edge play, setting up for the 2-hit knockout, discarding the energy from Tapu Lele GX. And it's still anybody's game. Now there's 5 items in Tord's discard pile. That's 100 damage for Trash-a-Lanche, a 2-hit knockout on any of those Pokemon GX. So it just might be coming down to which players are able to get the big attacks off and who has to, stumble.
So there we go. There's the Righteous Edge for the 2 damage counters and energy discard. Back over on Ryan's side, he has the Evolution. He has another double, but I don't know if he had much else to work with.
Yeah, he might want to just attach the other Double Colorless Energy and Energy Drive for 80, which would set up the Trash-a-Lanche knockout on the next turn. That's certainly a viable play. Then Tord goes down to 2 prize cards, but there are no other GXs on Ryan's side of the field. So he would have to take down 2 Garbodor to kind of close it out. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah,
It looks a little scary knowing that your Pokemon is almost certainly going to get knocked out. Your opponent's going to go down to 2 prize cards, but what else can you do?
Yeah, Optimus Sycamore off of this. So he actually did have a way to get a few more cards in. Actually throws away his Psychic Energy, and I don't see a replacement one yet.
Did not find one.
That could end up being relevant. He has Versus Seeker, so plenty more ways to draw cards. But I think that's probably the best opening for Ryan right now. Is just try and set up a 2-prize knockout, even if you have to sacrifice one to your opponent. So there we go.
Energy drive for 80. Does Tord have the energy to power up his Berserk? Just needs to do that 150 damage to finish off Tapu Lele GX, go down to 2 prize cards. This is going to be a photo finish, a race to see who can take all their prize cards first.
He has Psychic Energy in hand and plenty of different options as well. Attaches to the bench and retreats, actually.
I like that.
Throwing up the cleaner Drampa, forcing Ryan to have both a Guzma and an energy if he wants to get a knockout in that way.
How many are in discard?
Indeed, that's going to make things more difficult. Can Ryan respond here? There is one Pokemon tool on Tord's side, so a Field Blower could put a 6th item card into the discard pile. That's not a very relevant number, though. It does not get him anywhere near a one-hit knockout on a benched Pokemon GX. So Ryan seems to be in a little bit of trouble here. Tord has put himself in the best possible position, as he always does. And will he be able to close out this 4th round and move on to 4-0, or will Ryan be able to stop him?
Yeah, I feel like that retreat play is maybe one a lot of players would not have done. It never feels good to get rid of a double colorless energy, but I think it was a nice conservative play to sort of prevent your opponent from maybe taking out a big attacker.
Yeah, I see Tord do it a lot. I think he's excellent at that, knowing when it's time to retreat his Pokemon. And it looks like Ryan is going to go for the big Guzma here. He gets a 2-prize knockout, and he takes away the damaged benched Pokemon. So now Berserk only doing 80 damage unless Tord can find another Rainbow Energy. Ryan understanding he needs to keep up here. He needs to get those prizes if he's going to try to win this match before time's up.
Yeah, so it looks like that will be Ryan's out to come back down to 2 prizes. I almost wonder if you're Tord, do you just try and knock out with a Garbodor here? We see the Psychic Energy, probably just another Trashalanche. It's down to the wire.
Indeed, only 1 minute to go. Oh man, is this going to end up in a tie, or will one of these players take home the victory? I think Tord is in control for the 3rd game in a row, but can Ryan squeak this out?
Tord following it up with an N. Both these players are only going to get 2 cards. The big thing he's hoping to do is just deny Ryan an energy on this next turn. That would probably just lock up the win for Tord. But we've seen Ryan end to a small amount and get the card that he's needed earlier. Here we go again.
Yeah, the problem is I think Ryan's going to need an energy and an N to disrupt Tord's hand right back. Otherwise, it shouldn't be too difficult for Tord to get a final knockout if he has access to 3 or 4 cards. It would mean like a Guzma is game over.
Yeah, he has
Rainbow
Guzma
Energy
too.
is game over. Teammates is game over, obviously. So here we go. Trashalanche, knockout. And Ryan needs to promote a Pokemon. This is eerily similar to the International Championships.
Oh, man.
Time is called before Ryan promotes his Pokemon.
Oh, who is turn 0?
Deja vu.
I hear the crowd laughing.
And both of the players laughing as well.
Oh, man. I think we will actually see a conclusion.
This is
either
the
way,
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, this you can't write this. Unbelievable.
Oh, man.
And now, I know Tord has an uncanny understanding of the clock, but I wonder if he was able to do that with the time extension or if it's just a pure ridiculous coincidence.
All right, so now Ryan is turn 1, and Tord will be turn 2. Ryan is turn 3. So Ryan here has to clearly knock out this active Garbodor to and not lose, essentially. But he also needs to end Tord down to 1 card. Otherwise, we know he has the game-winning Guzma in hand to just pick off one of these low HP Eevee or Trubbish. I guess another option would be Energy Evolution and go for the Psybeam and hope Tord flips Tails, but that is a much
Oh, he has
option.
Versus Seeker. I didn't see it.
Oh, my goodness.
Here comes the end, coming back the other way.
This could be it. Wow. Ryan could prevent Tord from winning here. He's going to Trashalanche for the knockout and Tord down to 1 card. And if Tord doesn't have Rainbow Energy or a Guzma, he will not be able to get the final knockout. And at the very least, it'll end in a tie, but it might give Ryan one more turn to actually win the game.
Yeah, get something like a Guzma again to pull things out. That said, Tord has a couple of cards that could do it for him as well. He's going to have 2 cards to try and close this game out on his turn. So we see Trash Lynch coming out on Ryan's side. Just 1 prize card left.
Oh, he
Tord
gets
has the rainbow!
Wow. Tord Reklev off the end to 1 finds the game-winning rainbow energy, activating that bonus damage on Berserk. And wow, what an incredible series between these 2 players.